Hello and Happy New Year, and today I'm going to be doing a run on Ruhr Sieg. This is quite a good little service. This is a good service, but we'll be doing it in two parts. First part's a trip round to Letmouth, where we'll stop briefly. We'll do a bit of very brief bit of yard work, just dropping part of the train off. Then we'll wait briefly before heading along the rest of the line, where we will be following a goods train, a passenger train that will be stopping quite a lot. So let me just do a quick cab setup here. That's fine. Put the headlights, turn them all on. Okay, we should be good to go. Oh, wipers. Oh, I know what I've not done. Silly me. Should have had that done before I started, to apologise. Thought the numbers looked wrong in the pad there. So we're just pulling out of the siding under restricted monitoring by PZB. So we have a current speed limit. Can't see it very clearly. Oh, just acknowledge Sifa. So we've got a current speed limit 45 kilometers per hour. You don't need to be able to see those little numbers though once you understand what the coloured blocks all mean. So we're going to have to acknowledge that signal as we pass, because the distant part of it has some yellow in it, basically. There's no point absolutely caning it just yet. And we'll not be doing the full 60 kilometre per hour line speed probably either, because there are yellow and green signals in play at the moment, so they're basically telling you you should be doing 50 kilometres per hour, no more, unless there's information given on the signal head itself, which we'll see later on down the route. I think we come across some of that. So line speed's gone up to 60, but I'm not going to exceed 50 because of the signal condition. Or I should say, I'm not deliberately going to exceed 50. So we're no longer under 1000 Hz monitoring, so we could just release ourselves from PZB. Not actually any point doing that though, because we're going to be probably running into another signal. And sometimes you'll hear the Zugby Einflussung, where I've acknowledged PZB, where I'm actually acknowledging Sifa because they're on the same button, obviously, on the control pad. So one word of advice would be, if you're trying to learn how to use PZB, is don't use Sifa at the same time until you're comfortable with it, because it can get confusing sometimes. And sometimes I'll acknowledge Sifa without pressing the PZB button, because occasionally I do use the keyboard. So another yellow and green signal, so just keep an eye on the speed. And it's also a distant signal, so we have to acknowledge it. 1000 Hertz magnet kicks in, but we're already way below the PZB limit, so there's nothing else to do there at that point. And we're not in restricted monitoring just now. If you're in restricted, that little blue thing starts to flash down there, and that number there alternates between 70 and 85. If it's just flashing steady on 70, you're okay. You won't see restricted very much anyway, unless you're starting from a standstill. So another signal, this one does not need acknowledged because this is just a repeater signal. And this one doesn't need acknowledged either because it's a main signal. And the white number 5 on top of it's just reminding us speed limit's currently 50, regardless of what the actual line speed happens to be. Don't like being out of the cab for too long when I've got PZB and Sifa and all that stuff turned on. So distant signal coming up. You see the motorway style distance plates there, letting you know. And it's got some yellow in it, so it needs to be acknowledged as we go past. There we go, PZB just letting us know that we're all good. You've got about 2 seconds to press the button once you pass the signal, and if you don't press it, then PZB will just slam the brakes on and you're done. You need to reset the train. Doesn't actually take much time to cycle through, but it's a pain in the backside. Sifa again, so we'll just clear that. And again, at this point we could release ourselves from PZB monitoring, but there's absolutely no point because we're going straight back into it again, just round this corner. That's just a repeater signal, no need to acknowledge that one. This one up ahead we do. That's a combination signal with a distant and a main. and it's the distant part that you're acknowledging. Always the distant, it's never the main. There's me not intentionally going over the 50. I'll just wind it back in briefly. Brakes on these trains are excellent. As long as you're sort of aware of what's going on ahead of you, you can actually you can leave the brake in pretty last second on these things. They're phenomenal. Well, pretty early as well, so we can just cruise on in here. Nice low speed. Now, because we've got PZB on and we're in a siding, it's an idea to stay below 25-30 kph, even if the speed limit is 40, because we might get the, well, we will get the 500 hertz magnet come into play as we approach the signal at the end of the siding. If it's at red, if you're going too fast and it catches you by surprise, you've got a PZB penalty stop. And the only secret to driving with PZB is just to be thinking one step ahead. Pick it up a little bit because I think we're going to be okay. In fact, there we go. So we can keep it to 40. So that's a main signal with no distant information, so it shouldn't need to be acknowledged. Sifa does though, so... You'll see, even though I pressed the acknowledge button, nothing lit up on the PZB display there, so... We're okay. And then we can open it up a little bit for the next stage. So that's a distant signal telling us that we should expect clear ahead, and the speed limit goes up to 120k. So just bear in mind you have to let the whole train roll past that sign, and it is quite a long train. Okay, we can start building up the speed now. Okay, so we're doing a fair old speed now. Nothing to acknowledge on the signal mast because it's the main part was clear and the distant part. We'll just we'll come out of the power a bit. This is the easy part of the run. This is actually 2 scheduled services, but because of the way the game works, you can run one straight into the other without going back to the menu, which is what I'm going to do in this one. This is the short first part, which is just a quick run to a goods yard to stop for a few minutes, and then we'll move to a siding, dump the last 4 cars in the train, and then the remainder of the time we'll be following a passenger train that will be stopping at some of the stations. So there'll be lots of yellow signals, lots of PZB, lots of being slowed down, that kind of thing. It's actually quite good fun. The time limit for this first part is very, very generous. So distant signal coming up. You can tell it's a distant signal by that little white plate with the black chevrons at the bottom. That's what distinguishes it from a repeater, which looks the same apart from that plate. And the repeater will have a little white light in the corner as well. If it's a distant signal with a white light in the corner, that's telling you that the main signal it's paired with is closer than you would normally expect. Can be confusing at first because you've got so many similar looking signals that are fundamentally different things to each other. But once you've figured that out, it's actually not that different a system to the one we use in the UK. It is a fairly straightforward signalling system. So the signal we just passed actually telling us the speed limit's dropping to 100 kph as of the next main signal. If you see that yellow number underneath a signal head, that's an upcoming change. So you'll see it again on the next one. We get to the next signal, look for the white number 10 at the top. So we'll just give ourselves a kilometre or 2 in our pocket. Got another speed limit change coming up. I don't think this one needs to be acknowledged because 100 down to 90 is not a severe change. No, that didn't need to be acknowledged, but if you're in any doubt, just press the button anyway. It never hurts. So still all green, signal speed limit of 90k. That's the funny little one car thing, I like that one. So again, yellow in the distance signal means I need to acknowledge it as we go through. But we're already well below any speed limit, so just brakes, gets you inside the PZB speed limit. It's literally all PZB's looking for you to do in this mode is be below 70 kilometers per hour, and you've got something like 40 seconds to get there. It's pretty generous. I'm just going to let it keep bleeding off because I know we're going into a siding up here, and in fact I can see a yeah, that's a repeater telling me to proceed at reduced speed, which is 50 kilometers an hour unless otherwise stated usually. So we'll just bleed that off a bit, and now we're seeing our distance signal telling us to expect stop. Also needs to be acknowledged, and we'll just get the speed down to 40. That gives us plenty of time to react to a signal. And because I know we'll be coming to a halt soon, I'm actually just going to get the speed down to below 35, just so that the 500 Hertz magnet doesn't trip me up when I reach it. As long as you're going at 49 or less when you reach the 500 magnet, you'll be fine. But it doesn't hurt to be down to the minimum speed before you get there. Because again, it's looking for you to be down to about 35 kilometers an hour or 25 kilometers per hour within a certain time limit. Oh, don't stop yet, don't stop yet, don't stop yet. You don't want to go past that signal under any circumstances, but you do want to make sure that the arse end of the train's not hanging out over any points or anything like that. That's close enough. Right, so that's the first part of the service done. You can see now it says we can wait for the scheduled service to start at 17:25, which is what I'm going to do. We're just going to carry it straight on from here. So I'm going to go and take a very quick comfort break, and we'll pick this up again in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so what's going to happen is in about 30 seconds we're going to be cleared to go back the way. We're going to be going into a siding about, I was going to say it's about a kilometre away. It's not really, because we've got 400 metres or so of train between us and it. We'll be dropping some wagons off, and then we'll be getting underway. Okay, so it's behind us that we're going. Don't know how this is managed in real life. Presumably there'll be bods, you know, behind the train with radios and things like that, talking to the driver. I'm just going to do it with this camera. If you're in any doubt as well, as soon as the train starts to roll, just call this thing up and ask for the restricted speed. It's not always entirely clear whether you need to ask for permission at a signal or not. So again, if you're in any doubt, just do it. Now, the reason I'm going into this view is because I have PZB active. Yep, the button still works. I've had problems with that before from this view. Because PZB is active, I need to see when the locomotive is passing that signal at red, because I need to hold down the override switch as we go through, just to make sure that we don't get stopped by a 500 Hz magnet. Because that would be bad. Well, it wouldn't really, but it's annoying. Okay, I'm doing this with a USB keyboard. There is a click and drag switch on the driver's desk that you can use as well. This is just easier. So once you passed, you can let go of the button. I'm not even certain I needed it there, to be honest, but rule number 2 with PZB, if in doubt, press the button. I'm still figuring a few bits of it out when it comes to yard work and shunting. So that train just off to the left there is the one we're actually going to be following once we've dropped these carriages off, these coaches off. He's going to be stopping at a couple of the stations on the way as well, which means that although he's faster, we will close the gap up. Which means we'll be getting signals and things telling us to ease it off.
Sifa.
So distance at the top left saying 600 metres to go. It's not. It's the end of this little siding is going to come into sight very shortly. So if you're driving this from the cab, do remember, give yourself plenty of room.
Sifa.
There's the end just down here. As you can see, that's not 400 meters. It is measuring the distance from the cab. In fact, we can stop anywhere down here, it doesn't really matter. Okay. Yeah, it does say there the last 4 vehicles. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so next objective, head for Finnentrop. So master switch to forward, brakes released, little bit of power, and then I'm afraid we have to wait for a few minutes again for the service in the station ahead to pull out. You'll see there's a red signal at the end of the siding there. One on the ground there, that's the shunt signal telling me I can't go any further.
Sifa.
So we stop here for the signal, and as we'll see, not allowed to pass it. If we go to in fact, let's go to the flying camera. We can't move because of this guy. Because this is the line we're going to be on. So he has got a green signal, he's just he's supposed to be there, he's a scheduled service. So until this guy moves, we're stuck. He does seem to wait here for a little while. I assume it's done on purpose in case you take a bit longer than I did to do the stock move. Just waiting for his doors to close, that'll give us a clue that he's about to move. I tell you what, he's sitting there for longer than I ever get to. Wonder if we can get inside. Yeah, we can actually get inside with the flying camera. It will probably spaz out and bug me out very, very quickly. And I don't know what happens if the train starts to move while I'm in it as well. Come on, what's happening here? I have done this before on my other account. It's not bugged. It just has a longer wait than most services do. As I say, I think they might have done that sort of on purpose. Oh, doors are closing, that's good. We might get underway shortly. Right, so now he's underway. Watch for the where my cursor is, it doesn't stand out very well, I know, but where the cursor is, watch for the red ones to turn white, and that'll be our cue to get going. They will change, honestly. There we are. Alright. Fin and drop, here we come. So I'm also going to release the PZB, because that is a clear signal. It's not actually that long before we start hitting the signals anyway, to be honest. The first sort of few kilometres is fairly clear, because that passenger train will be building up a gap to us, but then it stops and we gain on it. And then for the last 20 kilometres or so, you're constantly having to react to PZB and to signals and things like that. It gets quite busy. So just we'll give it full beans. I'm going to get up to speed fairly quickly, so the quicker I'm up to speed, the faster we close the gap to the guy in front and start having some fun with this. Ordinarily, when I drive these services, though, there's no point being greedy about getting up to speed quickly, because you are going to be slowed down at some point. Although you do have to bear in mind you're not wanting to hold up anything behind you either. So that's the distance signal telling me expect clear. No need to acknowledge that one. If it's all green, it's good. The only time you would need to acknowledge a signal that's all green is if there's also a speed limit reduction attached to the mast or being displayed on the head. So there we go, already we're seeing a signal telling us to expect caution. So react to PZB. It is looking for us to get down to 70 kilometers per hour, but we've also got about 39 seconds, I think, to do that. We've easily done that. And we're going to keep braking, because it was a full yellow, so that's telling us expect stop at the next one. So until we can see the next one, we have to slow down. There's also the warning sign for a speed limit change. Now that might actually need a PZB acknowledged. No, it didn't, but Sifa needed acknowledged anyway, so there we go. That signal's gone green already. And there'll be a lot of that going on down this route. There we go, there's already a double yellow on the distance signal. There we go, it goes green as we approach, so the train ahead is building up a gap. It's past another signal further up the line which has triggered that one to turn green. So we'll just let the speed build slowly here, otherwise we'll just run smack into the signals again. And there's a main signal that's clear. Doesn't need acknowledged. Okay, so let's see what this upcoming signal's going to tell us. Again, there we go. Expect stop at the next one, so it needs to be acknowledged, and we need to... We're already below the PZB limit again, but we're going to shed some more speed till we can see the signal. Main difference between UK signals and German signals is in a German signalling environment you can go straight from a clear main signal to a danger main signal, but there will always be a distance signal in between those, like that one there, to warn you. Whereas with the British system we're used to all signals being main signals and you cannot go from a green straight to a red. In practice it works basically the same on the German route. The distant part of the signal system effectively works as that middle layer. I'm not very good at explaining things like this, I'm sorry, but once you crack the three different types of signal mast you're looking at, it's a breeze to drive them. It honestly is. There's a really good guide to the signals in the manual for the game as well, which can be downloaded from the developer's website. If I remember, I might come back and put a link in the comments as well, actually. Because the one thing you do really need to know if you want to drive with PZB is you have to understand what the signals are telling you. So orange sign there warning us that a kilometre away is a speed limit reduction. Not a biggie because we're already well under it thanks to the signals we've been getting thrown. Sometimes those signposts will have a PZB magnet next to them. Usually that is for cases where the speed limit is going from over 100 to below 100 kilometres. Usually they need acknowledged as well. Not always, but usually. Again, if you see the magnet next to the post, then press the button regardless if you're not sure. If you don't know what the PZB magnet looks like, it's like a little gold and silver box in the track, at the side of the track, just next to signal masts and things like that. I'll keep an eye out for one upcoming and see if I can point it out. Might be difficult with this crap from the snow on the windscreen, unfortunately. Or we could stick our head out the window, much easier. Right, so next to this signal mast coming up, you'll see the little box next to the track as we go past. There, that little box that pops into view. If you see one of those, that's a PZB magnet. And if you see any yellow on that signal, you should probably acknowledge it.
Sifa, Sifa.
So you can see green on the repeater there. So we'll just release the PZB. Because we know that the main's going to be green. And the sort of the orange and white coloured barber pole stuck to the mast there, that tells me it's a main signal. Orange or red in combination with the white tells you it's a main. Those are the ones that can turn red. Distant signals can never be red.
Sifa, Sifa.
So still cruising along well below the line speed, but because we know we're just going to run into signals, we're going fast enough. We're not interfering with anything behind us. Or no more so than as a consequence of all the yellows we're hitting anyway. So that looks like yellow off in the distance there, so we'll just come out of the power. And we're already down to 70 kilometres an hour, which is what PZB will be looking for anyway. So again, at this point we're just acknowledging it. We don't actually have to do anything. The manual also has a really good section about PZB. It gives you the speed limits and the distances and all that kind of guff. Really, really useful if you want to learn how to use that system. Wiper controls down there somewhere if you want to use the click and drag. Sifa again. Right, we should be okay to pick up a little bit of speed now. Yeah, we've got greens ahead. Don't think there was anything. I missed what was on that signal mast there, so we just acknowledge it anyway. I don't think there was anything. And we're moving into a slightly faster stretch of the line now as well, which means that braking distances and things will will be an issue if we have to use PZB. I say an issue, they'll be just something to think about. They're not an issue as long as you keep your wits about you. It's when you panic because you're not sure what PZB's telling you to do, that's when you have all the problems with it. I know this because I used to panic all the time when it went off. See now why you leave the desk light on. You turn it off in here. Okay, we'll pick it up a little bit. Again, we don't want to slow down so much that we start interfering with anything behind us. It's always good to give yourself just a few kilometres an hour in hand. So, yellow in the signal, and a speed limit change, so it needs to be acknowledged. And get below 70, it's that simple. 2 clicks of the brake and the train was decelerating more than comfortably enough to meet the restrictions. You don't need to jam the brakes on really hard. And conveniently 70 is also the speed limit that we're going into anyway, so we'll just another pointless release there. So we've released it, but we're going straight into a signal which is a main signal actually, so I don't need to acknowledge that. I did need to acknowledge Sifa, however. Right, so let's open it up now. Okay, so I managed to not acknowledge something there with PZB. I'm not sure what I missed. Took my eye off the screen for a second. Very, very easy to do. So if that happens, just override, release. and then just cycle the brakes. You just need to wait a wee minute for the brakes to release now. Okay, well that's not the end of the world. That'll buy us, that'll open up the gap to that train ahead a little bit. Not actually sure what I didn't see there. Why I'm getting hit by a 500 Hz magnet for a green signal.
Zugbeeinflussung.
Okay, that was strange. There was obviously something I didn't see somewhere. I've not had that happen to me before. Right, we'll just give it full beans now. Ah well, that was slightly embarrassing, never mind.
Sifa, Zugbeeinflussung.
What it might mean though is we have to go a bit further to find our next yellow signal, because that time that I spent stationary, obviously the passenger service that we've been following, he's been building up his lead over us.
Zugbeeinflussung.
That's the reason why I don't spend a huge amount of time on exterior cameras and things like that as well, is even when you know the route, it's really easy to forget something or to miss something. Okay, yeah, so we have built up some time, because I'm pretty sure I got slowed down around here the last time I did this. Certainly, I don't think that has added any time to how long it's going to take me to complete. Especially running slightly closer to line speed than I normally would. So there we go, I think I can see some yellow again in the signal ahead, so we need to get down to 70. We've got about 30 odd seconds to do it, so I'm going to be quite gentle with the braking. So PZB's been acknowledged, the 70 is flashing to tell me, right mate, get your speed down to this. But as long as I'm inside a fairly generous braking curve. There we go. Now, you don't want to actually touch 70. This is a fairly strict system, and as soon as it reads 70 kilometers an hour, it will shut the brake. It will shut everything down and put the brakes on. So give yourself 3, 4, 5 kph at least in hand to react, as long as PZB is on in any way, shape or form. Now that is... Now there, I do know what happened. I was too busy talking about PZB and not getting my speed down to the required limit. Because the signal we went through was an expect stop, and lo and behold we got a stop. And because I passed the 500 Hertz magnet and didn't react to it quickly enough, it slammed the brakes on. That's why I usually come down to about 35 kilometers an hour for a expect stop signal, so that doesn't happen. So that was a completely deliberate demonstration of what PZB will do if you're not paying attention coming through here. So the lesson there is when you pass a main or a distant that is telling you to expect stop, you expect to stop. So there's no PZB monitoring of any kind as we start getting underway again. So the next signal we're approaching, this is also yellow. Hopefully it'll stay that way. So if I'm coming from a clear PZB state, I can be doing any speed up to 160 on the PZB system, 120 on this line. As long as I then slow down once I've acknowledged PZB. So there we go, the signal's gone green, there's an 80 kilometer per hour speed limit coming up. That's a pretty cool thing to drive, the power car train on the left there. Especially if you fire them all up. Right, so that last signal was went green, so it's telling us expect clear. So we can start picking the speed up. Now it's saying expect clear, the next one can actually still be at yellow. It's just telling us that for now we're good to go. So we'll not bother going above 80 because we're going into that as a speed limit anyway. And green for us again, so everything's looking just nice. So we're now in the 80 kilometer per hour zone. The signs on the trackside ones can be a bit tricky to see with this crap down on the window here sometimes. But if you know what to look for, you can still spot them. So the motorway sign things there that you see, those are telling you there's a distance signal coming up around the corner. So there it's telling us expect stop. That's what the double yellow means. It means expect stop at the next main. So this time we're going to keep losing speed, so we're below 50. In fact, I'm going to shave it down a wee bit further. We'll get down to 40. And we need to be ready to get down to 25 pretty sharpish. I think it's 25 in mode M. It'll tell me when it kicks in, if it kicks in. So 50 kilometers an hour is the sensible speed for a green and yellow together, if there's no other information. 40 if you see a double yellow. Or a single yellow on the main. There we go, green. So we can pick it up now. Can't go above 70 as long as PZB's active, but because we've seen a green signal, we can just release that. We know it's clear. It'll self-release anyway after a little while, and you can also do that with page down key on a USB keyboard if you've got one. So I'm aware of an upcoming speed limit change, so I know that somewhere around 1,000 to 1,200 meters away from that change there will be a sign warning me that the change is coming. So you keep your eye open for that, and more importantly you're looking for the PZB magnet track side beside it, because it might need to be acknowledged. 100 down to 70, I think that might need it. So looking for the little orange signpost, there it is, and it's got a magnet, and right enough. So we'll just give it two knocks on the brake, and because we're going up a hill as well, the brakes just comes, the braking force is extraordinary. So there we go, the PZB requirements met. We've passed a green signal as well. And we're no longer under any monitoring, so we can just clear the PZB lock. Off we go. We could have left it to self-clear though, because it's a 70 speed limit anyway. We're not needing to go any faster. Hello, Happy New Year. Oh. Okay, so I'm expecting to see more yellow again, because we should be catching up to that passenger train after that fast section. Never used the PZB. PZB is very similar to AWS. The only difference really is AWS tells you, look mate, you need to pay attention to this, and PZB is there to make sure you did pay attention to it, if you know what I mean. you tell PZB you saw the thing rather than telling AWS you're now looking at the thing. Really, the only trick to it is understanding what the signals are telling you. Brilliant fun once you get the hang of it as well. Right, so we can pick it up a little bit now. Because I don't think there's anywhere else for that guy to stop. So we shouldn't run into him again. Yeah, I've already got it pre-ordered, Le Shark. Really looking forward to it. Right, so we're only 3 kilometres out now, so I would expect to start seeing some kind of signals ahead. So still getting greens. 2.9 to go. Right, so the flashing green is effectively a yellow and green together, and it's also got the 5 underneath it telling me the speed limit is dropping to 50k. So priority 1, get below 70 to satisfy PZB, is done. Now get down to 50, but try not to lose too much speed, so we'll come out of the brakes now, because it takes a little while for the inertia to scrub away, and then you can just feed the brakes in a little bit to get it down a bit further. So let's yeah, we're meeting all the requirements now. Don't need to acknowledge those because those are just repeaters. And yep, already done that once this trip. Totally on purpose, by the way. So that was expect stop, so we now need to be ready to lose a lot of speed quickly. I think it was expect stop. I was kind of half looking at the screen. So in fact I'm just going to pull it down to 25 now because we're going into a yard and I will be passing a 500 hertz magnet somewhere very shortly.
Sifa, Zugbeeinflussung.
Okay, and now it's just a case of respond to Sifa if it pops up and make sure you don't roll past the signal at the end. Oh, wrong camera.
Sifa Beeinflussung.
So there we go, that's the 500 hertz magnet kicked in. And max speed 35 at this point. I don't use modem often enough to have the speed limits memorised. That's going to change though, because I've discovered that driving freight trains on Ruhr Signord is my new favourite thing. Right, that's good enough. So that was, that was Hagen to Finnentrop with loads and loads and loads of signals and PZB and things like that. We're not going to wait for the service that's scheduled to start this time, because it's just going to be driving out the yard and off the end of the map. So, time for a well-earned cup after that, I think. Yes, keyboard. If you've got a USB keyboard, mate, highly recommend it. It completely changes the game because you get access to all the PC controls, and it's very, very useful for PZB and things like that as well. I probably wouldn't be using them if I didn't have the keyboard, to be honest. And if you get the manual from the developer's website, it's got all the keyboard buttons and stuff in it. Highly recommend it though. Don't know if Bluetooth ones work or not. I haven't tried it. But that's where I'm going to leave it just now. I will be doing another video very, very soon, because I've found a few of these freight routes that I think are really cool and I want to do. But thanks for now.